Hi, I'm Beta Hill, and this is the D-Word podcast, where we talk dementia. Welcome along to another D-Word podcast. My guest is Mike O'Brien, a campaigner for Unpaid Carers Rights. If you look at the statistics, there are in excess of 5 million unpaid carers in the UK, a statistic that still seems to get very little attention.
Yeah, basically. I mean, for some it can be, for some you're talking 100 hours plus. If the care is 24/7 and they've got like a child or an adult with complex needs, it's you can be looking at 100 hours plus.
Yeah, and that's obviously that's a big thing on the carer and the person they care for, because I guess you can feel really isolated.
Yeah, and especially during the pandemic, I mean, a lot of carers had they had services sort of pre-pandemic, and post during the pandemic, there were services were stopped, and now we're sort of like coming out of the pandemic. A lot of them services are still yet to sort of restart up. So, they're still basically carrying on their own. No sort of outside support or anything like that.
Sure. And I had carers say to me that the effect of COVID and during the pandemic and having the lockdowns and all that stuff, the inability to go out, was actually, people might actually realise now what my life pre-pandemic and post-pandemic is going to be like. Tell us a little bit about your experience of, caring for your elderly parents.
It can vary from day to day. Some days can be good, other days are not so good. And like I said, during the pandemic, it was hard. Basically, we were shielding, so we were basically sort of like stuck in the house, staring at the same four walls for months on end, not knowing when the lockdowns were going to end, and then one lockdown would end, and you'd get some freedom, and then another lockdown would kick in. And the thing is with ourselves and a lot of other people that were shielded, the first sort of lockdown ended, and people started getting back to some sort of normality. But those that were shielding were still advised to sort of like stay at home and stay indoors. So basically, it was like, there was two halves to society: the half that could go out and get on with their lives, and then you got the other half of those that were on the shielding list that were still at home.
Yeah, and I guess got very little recognition of that as well, because the main thing was we're getting back to normal. COVID is on the way out or whatever. But I didn't see too much in terms of recognition of those people that were still left to shield.
No, basically people that were shielded were pretty much sort of left to it and pretty much abandoned. And they had the sort of the clap for the nurses and the fire brigade and the key workers and what have you. But there was sort of like nothing for carers and those that they were caring for. There was, government. I think government did sort of begin to recognise unpaid carers during the pandemic, but then sort of like now that we're coming out of the pandemic, it's as if we don't exist anymore. We're sort of like fallen off the political table.
Yeah, it is. Obviously, it's very frustrating. And also, I see lots of statistics about money and, how much the NHS needs, et cetera, et cetera. I see statistics about what carers save the system, but I rarely see the two put together. So you've got the kind of the NHS budget and you've got how much carers save, but I don't, I rarely see the two put together in some sort of format.
No, I've never seen the two together. It's always, this is the NHS budget, and then so in some other report you'll see this is what carers save the NHS and social care a year. But like you say, they're never compared together. I mean, I think at last count, I think Carers UK did a sort of like a working out of it, and I think sort of carers save the NHS and social care, and in turn the government probably double what the NHS budget is.
Yeah, which is, it's crazy, really, isn't it? Because it kind of seems to me that the whole care system is held up by a bunch of unpaid volunteers. Because, you remove that layer of carers and the whole thing's just going to fall down like a bag of dominoes.
Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah. If unpaid carers suddenly just they all turn around tomorrow and said, right, that's it, over to you, government, the NHS and the social care system would collapse under its own weight because they just wouldn't be able to cope with the influx of new patients or new clients.
Yeah, and it's helping in so many ways because we hear about kind of bed blocking and people that can't be discharged because there's literally nowhere for them to go. Carers provide a real service in that respect as well as just keeping the wheels turning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. It's also about not putting pressure on unpaid carers to to have a person discharged before the care package is put in place. Because sort of I think the English government has sort of followed suit as with the Welsh government, and they've sort of said, well, a patient can be discharged to home prior to the care package being put in place, but then they don't give a timescale to say, well, but we'll put the care package in place within 14 days or whatever. So basically, unpaid carers could take somebody that's been discharged and be waiting months and months for the care package to be put in place. Or another thing they've also said is that if they can't be discharged to home and they're going to be discharged into a care home, they can basically be put in any care home. It doesn't matter whether it's their first choice or not. Mm. And I mean, we all know that some care homes are better than others. I mean, you could end up in a really poor care home rather than the one that you wanted to be put into because that one's got no spaces for you at the minute.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
You're in tune with the D-Word podcast, and I'm chatting to campaigner Mike O'Brien. With over 5 million unpaid carers in the country, they certainly seem to be the forgotten army.
I honestly couldn't tell you why governments don't recognise us. I think basically all they're thinking about is the money that we save them every year, and as far as they're concerned, that's the most important thing. I mean, they come out on like Carers Rights Day or Carers Week, which is in June, July every year, and they come out and say, "Oh, yes, we're grateful for unpaid carers. We understand the great pressures we're under. We're grateful for everything they did during the pandemic." And they come out with all these sort of warm words and platitudes, but then at the end of the day, there's never any real action. It's like, for example, I think I think it was towards the middle of last year. There was a debate around carers allowance, only because one of the petitions about it had reached the threshold for it to be debated. And so, it was debated, but that was it. Nothing came out of it. Carers allowance wasn't increased, or it's just, I don't know. I just don't understand why they won't recognise the contribution that unpaid carers make to society in general.
Yeah, it kind of fools me. And, as you know, this show is based around dementia. We had a dementia strategy in 2012, I think it was, that kind of David Cameron brought in. And to my mind, not a lot's changed, really, with the people that I speak to. It's a kind of perennial problem of being a carer. And, it just seems to go year in, year out, and nothing really seems to change.
Yeah, it's the same in Wales. I mean, the Welsh Government produced a unpaid carers strategy. I can't remember now whether it was I think it was last year. And they also brought out like an unpaid carers charter, but nothing's changed. There's been no. I mean, that we get the Welsh Government saying, "Oh, we've put money into respite, we've put money into this, we've done that," but none of it's actually improving the life of a carer or the person that they care for. I mean, for example, it's like the respite that they keep going on about. That's fine if you can take the respite, but for people that have got a child or an adult with complex needs, for them to be able to take the respite, they need somebody that can come in and provide alternative care for that person. And I mean, as we know at the minute, social care it's in crisis. It's broken really. So actually getting somebody to come in is nigh on impossible at the moment.
Yeah, almost seems you want to get someone in government and actually shove them in a house with someone who's caring for someone with complex needs, to actually recognise what's going on here. From a dementia point of view, we have laudable things like the dementia choir and those kind of things that hit the TV. But I'm kind of yet to see something that really goes on to the inside of, what the nuts and bolts of what it's like caring for someone with a really complex need.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what a lot of carers have said for a long time. If you go into, if you truly want to recognise and value unpaid carers, come and do an unpaid carers fulfil their role for a week. Or, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't think most politicians would last the day, let alone a week. I think half a day they'd be packing their bags and going back home to their big houses and their expenses and what have you.
Yeah, and it's a double-sided coin, isn't it? It's the caring for the loved one or the person you're caring for. And often that leads to carers neglecting their own health because they're concentrating so much on the person they're caring for.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Like I say, I know a lot of carers that have sort of put their own health on the back burner, and that they might need to go in for for example, there's one lady I know that needs surgery, but for her to be able to take the surgery, she needs somebody that can come in and look after her lad while she recovers, and that's just not happening. So basically, she has to put the surgery on the back burner and basically, wait until if there ever is an improvement in the social care crisis, which under the Conservative government, I don't think there ever will be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think kind of the one thing with caring for somebody is not only the kind of physical areas, but it's the psychological effect as well on, probably both parties in terms of the way relationships can change and different things happening. We often highlight that there's a kind of lack of social support for people living with dementia because everybody tends to go down the medical route. Which is, great, fine, let's find a cure, wonderful. But until then, I think it's the social aspects of things are really underestimated.
Yeah. I mean, it's, they seem to think that, like you say, let's find a cure for it and sort that out. But in the interim, people still need to socialise. They still need to be able to get out of the house, and there still needs to be them sort of peer groups where people like people with dementia, for example, can mix with other people and they can do activities and stuff like that. But no, there just doesn't seem to be much focus on that. And then what there is relies on sort of local authority funding or government funding, and then 2 or 3 years down the line, the funding dries up, and there's the local authority or whatever will sometimes say, we can't fund it anymore, so it ends up having to close down because they can't find any alternative funding for it.
Yeah, and there seems to be, technology is a wonderful thing. I'm talking to you, through the advances in technology. But it appears that some of the major charities now are going down the kind of online support route. Whereas surely if you're a carer, you just want to chat to somebody.
Yeah, it's like Carers UK. I mean, they do these sort of like me time things where you might get somebody teaching you salsa dancing or somebody teaching you yoga moves or something like that, which I mean, that might be good for some people, but like you said, there's that social aspect where you just want to be able to get out of the house, have a cup of coffee or cup of tea or whatever with somebody, and just sit down and have a chat and know that you're not on your own, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it's very important. I used to run groups where carers all got together. And it was, it's the isolation thing. It's thinking you're the only person that's going through this. And to actually share experience with people who've gone through it and share stories is so important.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, sort of during the pandemic, I think sort of connecting with other carers on Twitter and through social media and things like Zoom and Teams and what have you. It basically saved the sanity of a lot of people because I think, if it wasn't for, I mean, if this had happened, I don't know, say this had happened in the early 80s or something, we'd have been totally isolated because we didn't have the technology that we have now. And so, technology has been good in some ways, but in other ways it's also not so good because, it takes away that social aspect of meeting with other people in the real world.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
I'm Peter Hill and you're in tune with the D-Word podcast. I'm chatting to campaigner Mike O'Brien about unpaid carers. One thing I think isn't understood is that some carers still have to balance schoolwork and college with caring for their loved ones.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, there's carers of all ages, and there seems to be sort of like groups for for younger carers, and then you got groups for sort of older carers, and then put that sort of group in the middle, sort of 25 to 50, 60. It just seems, it's as if that group doesn't exist, sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of younger carers out there. Like I say, I'm not sure of the stats around how many there are. I mean, we might get a better idea when the census information is released, because I think it's the 13th of this month. I think they're going to release like the age, gender, and demographic area of carers and what have you. There's going to be more details, and we might have an idea then of how many younger carers there are. But again, I don't believe the census data. I think there's a lot of carers that haven't filled in the question about caring, because for it to drop, I don't believe that there's been a drop in the amount of carers. If anything, there's been an increase since the pandemic, because you got people suffering with long COVID, or people that have been affected in other ways by COVID, because I mean we now know COVID can affect you in lots of different ways. So they're going to need people to care for them. So if anything, I'd say the figures gone up by a significant amount rather than come down by. I think they claim it had come down by something like 600,000 people, which to me isn't right.
Yeah, I guess, lies, damn lies, and statistics, as was famously quoted. I mean, if you were in a room with Rishi Sunak, what would you say to him?
More support for unpaid carers and the people they care for. Increase carers allowance significantly, and change the eligibility rules around carers allowance, because there's a lot of carers that sort of have an underlying entitlement to carers allowance, but because of other eligibility rules that sort of come into play, they can't actually make a claim for it, because they've reached pension age, or the person that they care for, if they claim carers allowance, the cared for person would have their benefits reduced. So and full-time student, if you're doing a full-time university course, you can be doing that and caring for, say, your mother or your grandmother or your grandfather or whoever. But because you're in full-time education, you can't claim carers allowance. So, and again, it's like with the pension thing, just because you've turned 65 or whatever pension age is now, it doesn't mean that you're no longer providing care for somebody. You still are, and you probably will be until that. If it's like a child, you're probably going to be caring for that person until the day you die. So there definitely needs to be some big changes around carers allowance, but I honestly don't think they will.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the end of trying to fill a form in for carers allowance, and good luck to anybody who gets through this 40 odd pages or whatever it was.
The forms
was kind of crazy in itself. It's just such a frustrating world that if the points that you made, simply if someone took notice of those points, then the whole thing would start to change. But I guess the one thing you find really difficult to do as a carer is actually shout about it, because you got your hands full with everything you're doing, and to actually take time out of that to then campaign for things to get better is kind of really, really difficult.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's like at the minute we've got all these you've got the Enough is Enough campaign and protests in London and Cardiff and Manchester and wherever, and all these strikes and what have you. But then, you look at unpaid carers and we can't go out on the streets and protest, or we can't take strike action. But it's like, again, it's as if our voices don't count. And I did actually try and connect with the Enough is Enough campaign and say, well, can you sort of like consider unpaid carers in your campaign? And I just basically got blanked, nothing, no replies to my emails, my tweets, they just blanked me.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I think it's probably to say the least in terms of those things, because it takes a lot, doesn't it, to just open up the avenues of dialogue with politicians, people in charge of social care, etc. Because I guess from their point of view, with a system that's failing, they've got so much on their plate. It's very difficult for them to then listen to another group campaigning.
Yeah. Again, like you say, we're trying to get your voice heard by politicians. It can be a lot of the time you've got to sort of be able to persist with your efforts to try and get them to speak to you and hear your voice. But again, it's finding the time to keep on at them and get them to eventually sit down and listen. But it's I don't know. It's just it's a never ending battle, really.
Yeah, certainly. Well, sadly, time's bringing us to a close, Mike. It's been fascinating, and thank you from all the unpaid carers for what you're doing to try and just raise the issue, and hopefully one day someone will put two and two together and take a bit of notice.
Hopefully, yeah. Just have to keep grinding them down, I think, until they do.
My thanks to Mike, and I wish him continued success in trying to get recognition for unpaid carers. That's all for this edition. Hope you enjoyed it, and you'll join me again soon on the D Word podcast.